This is the Crazy Over 40s Live podcast, where every Thursday you will have a pirouette of rotating co-hosts, including myself, Caroline Brown, that will delve into topics relating to the over 40s. Throw away this notion that you're going through a midlife crisis. We're going for a crazy over 40s life. It's the time to uncover and rebirth our adolescent years filled with curiosity and all our desires. We do it right here on the Crazy Over 40s Live podcast. We look into relationships, emotional, sexual, financial wellness, entrepreneurships, providing you with an enjoyable delivery every Thursday. And don't forget to share and subscribe so you can keep updated on all the episodes as and when they become available. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, Crazy Forces Live listeners. Welcome back. I'm your host, Caroline Brown, as always. And today we shall be finding out how we can become smarter investors. What does that mean? Well, Richard Bunbury is here to tell us how. He's a first-generation American investor. He was born in Guyana and moved to America when he was about 4 years old. He grew up in a primarily Black and Latinx community. Richard taught himself how to write software and he's worked his way up to leadership roles at major fintech and e-commerce brands. Now, Richard uses his knowledge and experience to make investing accessible and desirable to everyone. Sounds good to you? Well, it does to me. He says that from the program and this development that he's working on now, he said that people can make investing a lot more smarter based on popularity. Want to know more? Well, join us after the interlude, and I'm your host, Caroline Brown. And don't forget to share and subscribe so you can keep updated on all the episodes just like the one today. See you back after the interlude. Listeners, as I said to you before, it's very important for me anyway, for you out there as well who are over 40, to think about investing, the importance of investing. And it's never too late. It's never too late to invest. And as I said to you before, Richard Bunbury shall be here talking about what he would like to get started. He's actually in the middle of starting it and getting it started off the ground. And he wants to share about the importance of investments and the different types of investments, and particularly about the investment that he is developing at the moment and the importance of it all. Hello, Richard. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well, Richard. This is a 2023, and I feel that we all need to get started in terms of reorganizing our investments or our attitude towards investment. So tell us a little bit about you and tell us a little bit about what you're developing currently.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a self-taught software engineer. I've worked for a few big brands. Software because I wanted to start this business. So about a year ago now, I guess, I left my job as a software engineer to pursue this business full time. And what I'm trying to do is build a new marketplace, invest in the popularity of things like movies, television, and films, with the intention being, the stock market, crypto, all of these sort of existing investment avenues are unintelligible to many people. They're scary. They're too complicated. They're all these things, and that prevents a lot of people from participating in what's provably the best way to build wealth. And so I want to do something to lower the bar by making investing something that's relatable, and something that people intrinsically understand.
Intrinsically understand is really important because Black people, that their households, generally speaking, we don't want to make assumptions here, but research has shown that they're most likely to own assets
Mhm.
rather than invest in things as you discussed. How do we get around that thinking?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate actually. I did a lot of research, before embarking on this journey.
Okay.
And
what you said is
exactly correct. It's really a mind shift change. Part of my research revealed that people tend to self-exclude themselves from investing, right? It's not like the people who are in charge are saying.
That being said,
There are, I think, unnecessary complexities related to existing marketplaces, and those things become barriers of entry, but they're not insurmountable barriers. So most
Okay.
people self-exclude themselves, and they're like,
I'm just
going
gonna
to buy
buy.
things instead. I'm going to be a consumer. And that, of course, doesn't, allow you to build wealth. It doesn't give you anything to leave for your loved ones, your children. So it's really a mind shift change first.
Starts with
Understanding, what your goals are in life, what your financial goals are, and looking at the juxtaposition between the interest rates for a savings account versus the average annual return,
S&P 500.
for example, which is an index fund on the stock exchange,
Okay.
rather the stock market. There's no comparison over the last 100 or so years. The S&P 500 has done an
Return.
returns per year. Now, some years it's up, some years it's down, but it averages about 8 to 10%. And so, when you consider those returns, some my mom, she prefers to put her money in a savings account, because it feels accessible, it feels safe.
Yeah.
Um, but the idea of investing is something that people still find really uncomfortable because it's very visible. You know what I mean? The savings account is just there. It's stable. You're not really looking at it. But in
The news, like
it's representative of our economy when it isn't. And so it's harder for people to just kind of stay the course, decide on a goal, stay the course, and live your life with something like investing. But it's essentially um, active
active
savings account. There's no reason that you need to listen to all of the noise about, this and that's going on, because ultimately the stock market will increase and it will decrease in value over time, or various assets on the stock market.
Yeah.
um,
In
invest.
investing gives you the opportunity to participate in those gains as long as you have a goal in mind.
As long as you have a goal in mind. Well, yeah, you explained it really clearly that unfortunately the kind of safer way to kind of to invest our money or deposit our money is somewhat shortchanging, the
Yeah,
Black community in many ways. And that's what I like about what you're developing at the moment. I think there is an idea that if you can't see it, then how do you know it's working? But you are actually
sure.
developing something that people can feel a little bit safer about. That tell us about what you're planning to do or what you're actually doing presently.
Yeah, so that's the big value add, I think. The thing
Okay.
about the stock market is, as you said, it seems like this sort of mysterious, foggy kind of system. And in a lot of
Yes.
ways it is. There are a lot of structures in place
Mm.
that don't really make it fair for,
As
as they refer to, basically people who invest in individual stocks, with not a lot of net worth. So it's this big
Okay.
scary structure, and there isn't a lot of visibility. There isn't enough visibility, and that's
Enough.
kind of on purpose.
Okay. Tell me
Um,
about that. Why is it on purpose, you feel?
well, if it were more visible, it would
Hmm.
be fairer, and
Okay.
wealth could be distributed more evenly.
I see.
Um, So with with something like uh, the
years ago between
Robinhood and retail investors and Citadel, uh, which is a major market maker, uh,
Okay. Yep.
and it exposed that there are relationships the
different parties
that
that
the average person might interplay with someone like a Robinhood, and
Right.
it makes it obvious that the playing field isn't exactly fair because there are all these things going on in the background that you don't get to see, and you're only
the iceberg
in
in terms
terms of here's what you can do, and don't worry about what's going on in the behind the curtain here. We'll take care of
You
that.
take care of that. Mm.
So what I'm trying to do is strip away all of that that unnecessary complexity, and that um,
theory
by giving people the opportunity to invest in something that you understand because you're a part of this culture, right? You tweet about an actor or a scene in a television show. You might stream the songs of your favorite artist, or watch the trailer for some movie. You have conversations about entertainment with friends and family. You
Right.
understand intrinsically when something is popular.
on the radio.
And you hear your friends talking about it. This is popular. This is pop culture, popularity, entertainment. These are things that are sort of part of our shared consciousness, and so there isn't that mystery because you understand. It's not
Okay.
the sort of aloof, unintelligible construct. So right at the beginning, at the base, you're like, oh, I understand why this Marvel movie is popular, or I don't think it's popular because no one's talking about it right now. And that's where
Right.
it begins. And then on top of that, the structure is really not that different from any other marketplace where you're buying and selling assets, which is, unfortunately, that should be how simple it is with existing marketplaces, but it just isn't.
It just isn't. Yeah, I mean, you said your mission is to provide opportunities for economic mobility and generational wealth to groups such as the Black community and people of color that hasn't been so accessible. And you talked about the complexities about that and how you feel they've been put in place to kind of distract or kind of feel that this is too much, too overwhelming for me to even consider. And so a lot of people, as you mentioned, I've mentioned, been placing their finances in assets that they can,
Hmm.
that for them, they can. You talked about popular, so that's very important in the development of the app that you're creating. Tell us a little bit more about that, if you can.
Yeah. So uh, what populometry does is it measures the popularity of an entertainment property like a song, a movie, or a TV show
Okay.
all the visible interactions.
on social media, streaming media. So things like likes and tweets and comments and streams and downloads, all of those data points add up essentially to the popularity of a thing. And it, it's
It's direct.
directly linked to the sort of social capital that an entertainment property is able to generate by dint of people's interest in it. This isn't something that you can really manipulate because either people
They're talking about it.
or they're not, and it's not very popular. So something like the last season of Stranger Things, which was very popular on Netflix, that could be something that people could trade um, based
Okay.
on the amount of interest and attention it gets.
Right. So So then you're investing in the popularity. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yes. Rather than
Okay.
investing in the actual entertainment property, which would be fraught with more complexity, what you're actually investing in is um, uh, shares of the popularity of an entertainment property. So you would be investing in that Stranger Things example. You would be investing in
of its popularity.
Okay. And how does that increase in wealth, say?
Mhm.
How does that increase?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways. The this the marketplace is meant to be backed, which I can talk
Right.
more about. But essentially, by participating in the marketplace, you implicitly get a share of this investment fund. Um, and so, even if you don't really, if you don't choose an entertainment property, you're still invested in this fund, and we'll have a fund manager that grows the the net asset value of the fund so that you are invested, whether you choose to participate in the place or not. With that said, in addition to that, the value of the shares you purchase, if you choose to do so, will increase and decrease just as the value of a stock increases and decreases. The difference, of it might be easier for you to understand why, because it's very visible, and the end goal for you is two main points. One, obviously, you'd like to sell
Your shares
at a higher value than where you purchased it, and that's going to be based on whether or not people think that this entertainment property will continue to increase in value, and thus it's something that they can then trade at a higher value. But more critically, we're also going to distribute dividends. Um, Basically every time the popularity of an entertainment property increases uh, at some calculable significant rate, um, the owners of shares of that popularity will receive dividends, which is what really drives the value of the shares, because we'll be able to predictably say over X number of hours, days, weeks, this is how
dividends we think
this entertainment property will generate for owners of its popularity.
And is that very different to someone, say, who's raising funds for a
Mm-hmm.
movie, and who owns the intellectual property? Is it still the person who created the idea?
Yeah. So what's
Okay.
interesting about this marketplace is um, people can still, create content that people can still write movie script
and release them.
and it doesn't sort of replace the consumer content creator model. It's an augmentation to um, really an existing marketplace called the where advertisers and folks who kind of sell our data in exchange for our attention. They participate in a marketplace
I
where we're
see.
kind of the commodities. So this marketplace kind of flips that on its head, where we're kind of aware of our attention. We know our attention has value, and so we create this marketplace where we trade that value amongst ourselves.
Right. And this is a really new. Is there someone else who's actually doing the same thing, or is there something?
Not that I'm familiar with.
Okay.
I don't. The thing is, there's kind of a steep barrier to entry because as an incumbent, I'm looking at like massive, structure.
We're talking about the New York Stock
Exchange, for example, or the
Okay.
NASDAQ. It's not easy to stand up a new exchange, and I'm essentially talking about many new exchanges,
Right. Okay.
starting with
Understand.
one, of course. So it's not a sort of simple endeavor, and I think the level of difficulty, uh, luckily or unluckily, is a reason that this kind of thing doesn't already exist.
Amazing. So tell me exactly where you are in the development of this and the structure and so on.
Sure. So I have designed an algorithm to discover and measure the popularity of entertainment content, as I described. And I'm currently in the
minimally viable product.
It's kind of like the very, very, very first version of this core piece of it, with the intention of inviting folks to sort of play around with it and give me some feedback and iterate so that I can really. The third part is working with regulators here in the United States to make sure that we're doing everything in a sort of really straightforward legal way. So that's going to take some time, and I'm actively working on that as well. So the marketplace isn't going to be ready until we've worked with regulators to make sure that the marketplace is safe.
Okay. Yeah. So essentially, once you figure out or decided the SEC strategy and the
Mm-hmm.
technical architecture of your design, you're ready to get out there.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Okay, right. And is there an opportunity to invest at this stage in your development, or is that?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
actually that's one of the things I'm working on right now is finding some investors who are sort of aligned with my goals. That's really important to me, but also expensive and difficult endeavor. And so
Of course.
raising money is of course a critical part of this in existing marketplaces. And I attempt to, distill down some of the ways the reader can participate in these existing marketplaces. However, I'm also very honest in that, the existing marketplaces, unfortunately, are not really designed for the average person. They're designed for big banks and hedge funds and market makers.
All these different players, which I talk about
in the book, that have molded the system in such a way that it benefits them, and it doesn't really work in the way that it was probably intended to from its
From its conception. So thanks for that, Richard. How can my users reach out to you?
So you can reach out to me on Twitter, at rbumbury, Bumbury, and obviously via Populometry's website. So POPULEMETRY .com. There's a contact Instagram and Twitter, so you can reach out and ask questions there, and I'm happy to chat.
Lovely. And any parting words for my listeners?
Just that invest. It can seem like this big, confusing, unintelligible thing, and in a lot of ways it is. but it's also really important that we do our best to demystify all of that and participate. The only proven ways to build wealth, build generational wealth. And I think, for the communities that historically have not been given that opportunity or have been actively excluded from those opportunities, it's really critical ways to build wealth.
Well, you can leave it on a better note because you are first generation American investor in your family.
Yes.
So there's always a good time. The good time is when you realize, and over 40s, you're here on over 40s podcast. You heard what Richard said. You want further information, he's left his details. It was so lovely to talk to you, Richard.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Wow, he left his details, and you can get hold of all my guests as always: Instagram, Facebook, Gmail, the crazyoverforceslife.com website. And don't forget to share and subscribe so you can keep updated on all the episodes as and when they become available. And don't forget to leave a review. Every review counts. And I'm your host, Caroline Brown.